was my father's idea, seeing the relationship that I had with Kanye, the relationship that he had with Drake, and just wanted to lead the way and kind of starting the movement.
It's episode 232 of the Cassius Morris Show. Thanks for tuning into this brand new edition of the podcast. Pretty big guest today. You know, this is pretty cool for anybody who has been following the hip hop and rap community probably in the last couple of months. And today on the podcast, we have Larry Hoover Jr., who's going to be talking about this big effort that's been going on to free his father for a number of years now. And the reason he's on the podcast today is because he was the spearhead of this benefit concert that's going on December 9th in Los Angeles, which is going to mark the reunion of Drake and Kanye West. The two of them, this is their concert, they're headlining, they're putting it on, but they're doing it as a benefit show to help free Larry Hoover, which is pretty crazy, man. I mean, you guys probably saw my content covering it when they reunited. I was happy about that. And, you know, for a dude in my generation where I'm sitting here, this is two of the biggest artists that have ever existed in my lifetime. So for me, it almost feels like Michael Jackson and Prince, if they would have ended up resolving their differences, coming together and doing a show. That's really what this is for me. So the fact that we can have Larry Hoover Jr. on to talk about how this came together, whether or not it was difficult to bring Kanye and Drake back together, and sort of what all the moving pieces were like with that. We also got to discuss what Kanye is actually like. I mean, listen, this is a mysterious dude and a dude who nobody really knows what's up with him. So getting a little bit inside that creative process. You know, Larry Hoover Jr. had a pretty big role in the new Kanye record, Donda. Anybody who's listened to the record heard him on the track Jesus Lord with Kanye and Jay Electronica, which is probably one of my favorite tracks on the album. And he has probably a 4-minute spoken part, or 2.5 minute spoken part on the Donda album. So on one of the biggest albums of the year, he was in attendance at all of the Donda events at the arena. So everything leading up to it, the whole creative process, the shows, the rollout. So this is a really, really interesting conversation, man, for anybody involved in this scene. And I'm happy I get to switch it up a little bit. You know, I want to bring a little bit of everything. I never want the show or the perspectives of my guests to feel one-sided. So I'm really hoping that I can give you guys something different and unique every time you check me out. If you do enjoy what you're seeing on today's episode, please click that subscribe button, whether you're tuned in on YouTube or the audio platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher Radio. It's a big help. Let's get those subscribers up. I'm trying to hit 5K pretty soon, then we'll move it to 10K. Let's just keep it going, keep it building. And like I said, just really happy to have Larry Hoover Jr. on the show, man. This is really cool, and this is an event that, after a year of unspeakable loss for the hip-hop community, is actually hopefully going to bring some people together and put some smiles on people's faces and push the agenda for a bigger narrative that is bigger than just this problem. And, you know, again, I'll let you guys watch it in a second here. We do address this, but this is bigger than Larry Hoover. You know, there's people in jail that, you know, many people feel shouldn't be, for many, many different reasons in the United States. It's a big problem. You know, things get messy when it comes to the prison systems and privately owned prisons and sort of the ins and outs of all that. It gets messy, and it is a big topic that I think is worth discussing, and that's why I chose to discuss it on my platform today. So without further ado, let's get into this podcast. Here's my conversation with Larry Hoover Jr. What's going on, man?
Nothing much. Just trying to get ready for next week.
6 days until the show. It must be a pretty crazy time.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So maybe take me back. I mean, how did this whole thing exactly get started between you and Ye in terms of the effort to free your father? Like, how far back does this go for you?
Around the time when he went to see Trump. So
Okay.
That was, what, 2-3 years ago? Yeah. So it goes back to around that time. And we, you know, he was from, you know, Ye is from Chicago. And, you know, he had thought about it and said that he wanted to help. And, you know, we kind of gave him our story about what was going on, you know, from the inside point of view. And he was saying that he was going to use whatever avenues he had to try to help. And the first thing was to try to go and see if Trump could do something.
Okay. And then he decided to take things into his own hands now. I mean, how close do you think we are to freeing your father? Do you feel like everything going on now is really getting us there?
I mean, I believe it should help, but until it actually happens, I can't say that we're there.
Mhm.
I feel like we're always miles away until it happens. But I do feel like it's like the push is strong, and with people being aware of what's going on and knowing about finding out more about his situation and not knowing him just as they try to represent him in the media as the leader of the gangster disciples. You know, yeah, I feel like it should be some hope along with him qualifying for the First Step Act.
Speaking of that media narrative, what would you say is the biggest false part of the narrative, sort of against your father and your family, that you want people to know?
I would believe for one, they say that he's incarcerated because he has a murder case, which is not true. He's actually locked up for 5 to 6 life sentences for a non-violent drug case that other people have been released from the same case, pretty much the same paperwork, just different names. And it works for everybody else, but it doesn't work for him. And the fact that he's making the calls on what's going on in the streets, like they know that the ADX is a place where nothing gets in and nothing gets out. So to use him every time it looks like he has a chance for parole or release to keep popping up in the media and saying that he doesn't deserve to get out and what have you, because he's calling the shots and he's a real bad man. He's in jail for a drug case that people have been released from, the same exact case that's on this same exact case. Like, come on, let's be fair. That's not right because of his name and who he is or what he might have done. It's unfair. And then he's living in inhumane conditions.
So do you feel like this is sort of part of a bigger issue? I mean, obviously it's insanely personal to you, but this is something that seems to be affecting a lot of people also.
Yeah, it's a bigger issue. I mean, it's like we have laws and the government make these laws that are supposed to protect the people, and it's supposed to protect people. So it's supposed to be used fairly. It's supposed to protect everybody. Like even the people that committed crimes. Like you can't break the law against them because they committed a crime. You commit a crime, and at some point you serve your time, and the law is supposed to make it that everything is done justly in that situation. And it's more than just my father. It's a lot of people that are dealing with situations where we need prison reform. We need to change the way things are going. You know, just because your life situation or whatever it is put you in the situation that you're in, you deserve a chance to redeem yourself. And there's a lot of people that's not getting redemption that are like my father.
100%. And obviously, we heard you talk about this on the Donda record, which was a really awesome, touching segment at the end of Jesus Lord. How exactly did that come about? And sort of what were the conversations like with Ye leading up to that?
We had conversations, but the conversation wasn't really that. We came to talk. We came down to Atlanta to talk, and we were speaking on getting back to the mission at hand because we did the thing with Trump, but then we hadn't really done anything else up until that point, at least not with Ye. But we came to talk about getting back to the mission at hand. And it was mentioned in the meeting of maybe letting me speak on the album. And then we didn't hear anything about it. And he called and said, I want you to put some words on there. And I was just trying to figure out what he wanted. And he kind of told me a little bit, like what he was trying to do, just kind of tell my story a little bit. So, man, I went and started putting it together. And the next day I gave it to him, and that evening they played it in the stadium.
Man, and were you there at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium?
Yeah, I was there.
And I heard that they brought a lot of people together for that from a bunch of different groups and cities.
Oh yeah, it was a lot of different people, a lot of different artists, and it was like man, it was a studio. He was living there, but it was also a studio. It was guys coming in, working, laying down verses. Like it was going down in live time. But I guess that's why it was a listening party, because everything that was done didn't make the album.
So what was it
Yes.
like for you when you're looking around and you're hearing, obviously, your story, your testimony that's so important to you with all those people, lending you their ear? What was that feeling like?
Man, it was it was exciting. Like I hollered and screamed, and I usually don't holler and scream about anything. I was excited that it was there. I think a lot of people, I don't know if they heard it clearly because of the sound in the stadium, but yeah, man, it was exciting. Like, it's a chance I'm gonna be on the album. I didn't get super excited because I knew everything that I heard wasn't staying on there. So that still took a while before my full excitement was there.
No, that makes
Yeah.
sense. I mean, there's no way to be sure. What is it like being around Ye when he's sort of in his creative process? Because I know this creative process has been sort of different from the other ones he's done.
You get a little time, but you don't get a lot of focus.
Okay.
So it's kind of in and out. Just some time, and then he goes back to doing what he needs to do. And I guess you could say he goes back to work. We didn't actually work on that at the same time. I had no idea what it was gonna be on or anything. I just sent it over to him.
Would you say that Ye is? Let me think of how to phrase this. There's a lot of perceptions about Ye out there. How much of that do you think is accurate, and how much of that do you think is sort of an image that he crafts, because he's obviously a PR genius?
I think it's pretty much opinions are like assholes. Everybody have one, and everybody's gonna take their opinion of what's going on, what they would do, how they would deal with a certain person, and what have you. And I mean, I can't say that he's not a genius when he does. I mean, look at all the different things that he has his hands in. So, I mean, the man is a genius. Like, he's constantly thinking. He's always figuring out how to reinvent and how to move forward on things. He moves how he wants to move, though. That's the one thing. And he's not really worried about how you feel about it. I just know, as far as I'm concerned, like, he's real big to me because he didn't have to attach himself to this. People that usually attach themselves to the name are worried about the backlash that comes with it. And he put his name on it, and now he's taking it to the world. Like, the world might not knew about knew about my father or any other story. All they would know about is that's the leader of the gangster disciples that's locked up, and maybe he should be there. They wouldn't know that he qualifies to be released. They wouldn't know that he's been there for 48 years, that other people are being released that was on the same case, but they don't want to, but they're not releasing him because they're not sure what he might do when he's released. They wouldn't know any of these things. They wouldn't know that he's in a cell for 23-1 if he didn't give us this platform to really put it out to the world. We put it out, but not on this level.
Mm-hmm. Does your father talk to you about his plans for when he comes out? I mean, does he plan on doing any speaking or anything like that? Or is he just trying to get out at this point?
I mean, like, he just wants to come home at this point. It just depends on what the world offers to him after that, mm-hmm. But really it's to come home and actually see the world and be a part of it at this point. He would like to, I'm quite sure he would be interested if he could help somebody, change lives, because that's what he was trying to do before he was silenced and took away. But at this point, he just wants to come be a part of the world. He hasn't been a part of the world for a long time. He keeps being held responsible as if he is a part of the world, when they know for a fact that he's in the most secure, one of the most secure prison systems in the world.
Man, unbelievable. So how did Jay Prince come into this exactly and start sort of the talks for this concert? Because I know he had a massive part to do with this.
Well, Jay Prince we started doing business with Jay Prince over 20 years ago. And then we kept a relationship, which turned into family, because we've been dealing with each other for so long. Years ago, he visited my father, and they made a friendship, and just us, visiting him back and forth. So we've had a relationship for a long time. We've been in contact even before we got to this point. It was my father's idea, seeing that relationships that we had, the relationship that I had with Kanye, the relationship that he had with Drake, and just wanted to, put this together just to bring peace so they can be, for one, show what they could do together and lead the way and kind of starting the movement for, there's no need to be beefing and be into these situations, and they wanted to be a trickle down effect, not just entertainers, but, down to the streets that people can, get along and move forward in life. Because there's a lot of entertainers getting hurt over these beefs and what have you out here. And if it's not them, it's the friends that's around them. So, that's just the person he is. That's what he does. That's what he did, even in the streets of Chicago when he was able to speak to the people. It was peace on the streets. He had respect, and through that respect, he can bring people together and let them get an understanding. It was safer in the city.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, with Jay Prince having a relationship, with us having a relationship, and just bringing it all together, we could get his vision together and, put the word out about him, and also lay the blueprint for people coming together and being peaceful and getting along with each other.
So when you guys met up with Drake, how was the process in terms of getting him and Ye to sort of settle their differences? Was this a tough process, or was this an easy process? Because I know Drake obviously has massive respect for yourself and Jay Prince.
It took work, and it took a little work, and as men, they had to get together and, kind of hash it out, kind of figure out whatever situations were. But being leaders and strong men, they were able to be in a neutral situation where they could, express their feelings and move forward. And that's what they did. It, like I said, it took a little work, but it happened.
What was Drake's first reaction when yourself and Jay Prince met with him? Like, was it a long convo? Were you getting into details about your father, or was it sort of a shorter meeting?
Our conversation was basically we just had to work on getting things together between two men. Nobody had an issue with dealing with none of this situation. Just from being around Mr. Prince, Drake's aware of my father and everything about him. I've been going to see him and, meeting him at shows pretty much when he came into Chicago. So it wasn't a long conversation about that. It was more of, just getting an understanding between two men so that they could feel comfortable in coming together doing what they need to do.
Do you feel like this will have a big effect on sort of the culture in general? Because, we've been seeing a lot of violence going on in the culture, a lot of rappers getting killed, etc. Do you think this will maybe help other people settle their differences and take a step forward from this?
I hope that it can help people settle their differences and take a step forward. I can't say that it 100% will, but when you see the top people doing it, it might help. It might give an idea like it's okay to do it. There's nothing wrong with doing it. They can see that it can be a benefit from it. If you can save some lives, that's definitely a benefit. Hopefully in this situation, no lives were in jeopardy, but you never know what could have happened.
So for the concert, do you think we can expect to see Ye and Drake on stage the whole time together, or will it be more of a co-headline type of deal?
I don't know about that. They're doing the artistic process. Maybe when I get to California next week, I can find out ahead of time before everybody else. But yeah, I'm not sure how that's going to be done. It's going to be a surprise to me, just like you guys.
Okay, so even if there was other artists on the bill, that would also be a surprise.
Yeah, that would be a surprise to me too at this point.
Very cool. And lastly, just to end it off, just maybe if you could tell the people What are you looking forward to the most in terms of your father when he comes home? Like when you picture it in your head, how do you picture it, and what exactly is the first thing you see yourself doing with him?
And the first thing that I see is actually just being able, just being able to hug him, to see him. Yeah, that's the first thing, to actually be able to touch him. Me and my family, being able to just actually embrace him.
Yeah.
That's what it is at this point. After that, everything else comes after that. But that's the first thing. Like, I never thought it would be to a point to just be looking forward to touching somebody. Like, it's literally been 26 years. It's like going to the zoo, and
Wow.
it's an animal behind the glass, not the cage, but behind the glass. But this animal is my father. And then the crazy part about it is that you could touch him at one time, but they took him there and they got him like Hannibal Lecter or somebody, knowing that he has been a peaceful individual and has always has brought peace. Like I said, I have to just keep reiterating it, that this was a non-violent drug crime, and he's there with terrorists, people that have actually killed and took a lot of people out. Like, he's even over penalized. Like the other people on this case, they were not in the ADX. They were in other penitentiaries. They at least had a chance to have visits where they can, touch their family, able to make it there to see them. Like, the treatment was I don't know. It was too much. It was extra.
Do you think they're trying to make an example out of him in some sense, or?
I mean, they are trying to make an example, but if it's the same thing with everybody else, why would the example? It's not fair. Like, what's your point? Why are you trying to make an example? Is it because that him and these same guys were on a case together, or are you trying to make an example because he was able to get thousands of young men together that were willing to vote, that were willing to march about like medical centers being closed and about schools being closed, and to come together and march about trying to find jobs and what have you? Like, what, what's the difference? What's the real situation? How can other people qualify for the same case with the same paperwork, but we look at him differently? I mean, he's
Yeah.
over 50. People over 50, they don't usually commit crimes. It's like 2% that recommit crimes. Like, he's a 70-year-old man. Like, he's not interested in trying to come out here and get in the streets. And if he was, like I said on the album, like, I wouldn't deal with him. Like, I'd be so hurt to go through all this and keep fighting for my father, and he was to come home and get in the streets. But he wouldn't have to get in the streets. Like, I believe that it's compassion. People have compassion for the fact of what he's been through and what he's dealing with, that he would be okay. There's no need. People go get in the streets because they're trying to find out how to survive. They're trying to find a way. That's what puts people in the streets. People don't go in the streets because they just want to tear down their community and the people that's around them.
Did you have those feelings growing up at all, like of resentment over your name or sort of the family legacy, or was it always sort of the opposite feeling of just supporting your father?
I mean, I didn't have resentment, but as a youth, I didn't, early on, I didn't know what, who my father was, or what have you. And then when I did find out, at one point in time, I was, a little nervous. I didn't know if I was in harm's way by having that name. But then as I grew older and started understanding what my father was explaining to me about what he was interested in, I was proud of my father's name and proud of what I was seeing. By the time I was a late teenager, all the stuff that I was talking about as far as finding the serial rapists in the community and catching them, the guys on the streets, and shutting down the city hall and the stock market when they marched. Like, this is the stuff I started seeing. I was proud seeing that they were trying to make businesses and all that type of stuff. So at first I didn't know and I was a little nervous, but as I got older, I started seeing nothing but a lot of positivity. I started learning about growth and development, and it fit me and it fit my life. And that's how I live my life, being a part of society. And this is what I learned from my father. You know, I went away to college, home, I got a job. I had kids. I got married at some point in time. I've been living growth and development, which I learned from my father. You know, this was his blueprint that he was trying to pass on to the community. And I got it from him. And that's the life that I lived. So yeah, I'm proud of my father and what he's about. It upsets me to hear that some people who believe in him didn't make the transformation, or, but when they took away the people that was trying to help people go to the transformation, they took the people away that was passing the information along, and said that you would continue gang enterprise by trying to change people's lives. And that was hurtful, but that's what my father's legacy should be, about him trying to change from what had started, from what was going on. But they didn't want to accept that. They just stopped it cold turkey and left it at what it was. But that should be my father's legacy, and I'm proud of what he was doing and who I am because of what I learned from him.
I want to give a big shout out to Larry Hoover Jr. for joining the podcast and sharing some time and insight with me. Really interesting perspective. You always hear about the guy who's the face of it, the guy who's locked up with the popular mugshot and the biggest name, but you don't necessarily hear from the family, from the people, the grandkids and their sons and daughters and the people who are affected by all this. So it is an interesting perspective. If you like today's podcast, please click that subscribe button for more content on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher Radio. This will give you all the real-time updates about everything that I'm posting. We have a lot of cool stuff coming up, some really, really diverse topics, a lot of new names, new to the show, but names that you guys will definitely know that you may not expect that I would be talking to. Like I said off the top, I'm switching it up. I'm going in all the way, and I'm also getting a new mic stand in a couple days because I feel kind of awkward. I just looked up into the monitor and I didn't see the stand, and it threw me off for a second. I've been using the Neumann TLM 103 microphone for some other voiceover and stuff. I was going to use that tonight. It was too much feedback, but that's the mic that Howard Stern uses. And boy, is it a treat to have that microphone is sitting over there. Anyway, I'll let you guys get out of here. Thanks for tuning into the podcast. Until next time, rock on.